Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to go ahead and update my single target rotation video for 9.1. So this is going to be basically what you want to do anytime for your opener, and then I'll talk a little bit about what you want to do in between your cooldown windows as a Shadow Priest. But it's pretty straightforward, and not much has changed since 9.0, but there are some things that have changed, so I want to talk about those in this video. So, as a forewarning, I am playing a Night Fae Shadow Priest, which means the rotation is going to be different than if you're playing a Venthyr Shadow Priest, or a Necrolord Shadow Priest, or a Kyrian Shadow Priest. So I haven't ever played Kyrian or Necrolord Shadow Priest, so I can't give any advice for single target rotations for those. But I can give advice for Venthyr and for Night Fae because I've played those, although it's been a long time since I played Venthyr. So hopefully, if you're watching this video, there will be things that you can pick up if you're playing one of those other covenants. It's just that your exact order of spells won't be the same as the ones that I'm going to be doing in this video if you're a different covenant. For instance, from what I've heard, Necrolord Shadow Priests will play 2-minute Void Forms instead of using it on cooldown, just so that it lines up with PI and Unholy Nova better, which means more damage overall. But that's different from Night Fae for sure. So specific things like that, I may make videos about those in the future if I do happen to swap covenants. Necrolord is probably the only one that I would potentially swap to as of right now. So if you're looking for a Necrolord 9.1 single target rotation video, I would say maybe go check out my channel and see if I've posted one. But at the time of recording this, I don't have any plans to swap to Necrolord in the near future. But that's definitely the covenant that I would swap to if I had to swap to one that wasn't Night Fae. So as of right now, I don't have plans on making that video, and I have not made that video, so you might have to look elsewhere to find that. But if you're watching this, 6 months from when I made it, then maybe I do have that Necrolord video now, and you should check my channel. Okay, so now let's just get into it. I'm going to go ahead and hit play. I just recorded myself hitting a training dummy for about a minute. This is the single target setup you want to run as far as talents go. And this is what you would run every single time for single target. There are raid bosses where you may run Misery instead of Twist of Fate if there are like ads that spawn that you have to kill as well, things like that. But for the most part, pretty much every boss in Sanctum of Domination at least, you play Twist of Fate. On Mythic, Soul Render, Misery is really good, so you would play that instead. And on Sylvanas, you don't play Twist of Fate because she never gets below 35% HP. But on every other boss, this is what you would play for single target talents. And then you'll notice I'm also playing Dreamweaver. That's because Dreamweaver has a soulbind. I'll pause it once we get in here. Dreamweaver has some pretty good traits, right? So in 9.0, Naya was the play for single target because of Grove Invigoration is what it's called. But now that we've fully unlocked Dreamweaver, Dreamweaver is stronger if and only if you can get a lot of uptime of your Field of Blossoms. So for anyone who doesn't know, when you're playing Dreamweaver, anytime you press Fey Guardians, which is my 0 ability down here, it'll put a blue circle beneath your feet. It'll put a blue circle on the ground, so it's not attached to you or anything. Puts a blue circle on the ground that you need to stand in, and it gives you 15% increased haste. If you ever have to move out of the blue circle, you lose the buff, and then anytime you're standing in it, you get the buff, right? So, as of making this video, Dreamweaver is stronger than Naya, but only if you stand in that circle most of the time. If you're finding that, let's say you're fighting Mythic Eye of the Jailer or something, and you're getting targeted by a bunch of abilities, and you're not being able to stand in that circle, then Naya is probably stronger in that scenario for you, because Naya has no prerequisites like that, right? Naya, you just press your buttons and you do good damage, whereas Dreamweaver, if you stand in this circle, you do more damage. If you don't stand in this circle, you'll end up doing less damage than a Naya player. So this is what you want to play. The big things to keep in mind, Dissonant Echoes, still one of our best potency conduits. You play Dissonant Echoes, you play Haunting Apparitions, you play Rabid Shadows. If you are playing a Necrolord, I can tell you this right now. Necrolords don't play Rabid Shadows because they don't play Mindbender. They play Void Torrent instead. So if you're a Necrolord, then you would swap this Rabid Shadows with a Mind Devourer. That's the conduit that you want to play instead. But as a Night Fae, these are the ones you want to play. For defensive conduits, I take Translucent Image and the... What's this called? Oh, I don't even see it on here. Oh, Condensed Animasphere. There it is. This one is a lot of passive healing. Anytime you take damage, it's really nice. Although there is an argument to be made for Light's Inspiration. That one's pretty good too. So it's not a huge deal which one you play, but Fade, this Fade one, Translucent Image, is best in slot for sure. And then probably you want to take this one as your secondary one. And then this is the path that I take for the traits that you want to be playing. Okay, so now let's just take a look at the rotation. Now that we have all the pre-stuff out of the way. I'm going to take a second to get composed here, and then I'm going to start, and I'll talk about it. You'll see the very first thing I do is cast Vampiric Touch. I'll walk through... I don't think I can play this at like a slower speed, but maybe I can. Let's see. No. Okay, so I'll talk about this pretty quickly as it happens. So you do Vampiric Touch before pull. So if you have a countdown going 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, right? When it says 2, when it's between 2 and 1, you can start casting this Vampiric Touch, and it'll go off when it hits 0. Mine is like a 1.1 second cooldown, so I start casting it at about 1.5 because we always pull early anyway. So that lines up like perfectly with the pull. And then immediately after this Vampiric Touch, I'll cast a Shadow Word Pain, so that I get my 2 buffs, my 2 dots up on the target. And then the next thing you want to press is Mindbender. This is where the rotation changes from 9.0. In 9.0, your second thing to press would be Fey Guardians, but in 9.1, you want to press Mindbender first when you play Dreamweaver. So you press Mindbender, you press your Soul-Letting Ruby if you have it. If you're playing different trinkets, then you probably wouldn't press them here, and the timing for those is going to be different. I would suggest you play Soul-Letting Ruby, and you play the Forbidden Necromantic Tome that drops off of Kel'Thuzad. If you play those two, then this is how you want to do it. So Soul-Letting Ruby, I use it right after I press Mindbender, because I'm pretty far away, and it's got a travel time before you get the crit. And then immediately I'm going to press Shadow Word Death, then I'm going to press Mind Blast. You use these 2 abilities so that you get 2 Shadow Flame Rifts immediately, and they extend your Mindbender. And then I'm going to press Fey Guardians, and it puts, you'll see this blue circle in like 2 seconds. There it is. This is the blue circle you need to stay in. That gives you the increased haste. It's pretty big, so you could stand on like one edge of it to dodge something and then move to the other edge to dodge something else, which is nice. But so you need to stand in this. After you press Fey Guardians, you're going to press Void Eruption. So this is me getting into Void form. And then your very first spell should be Void Bolt. We're playing Hungering Void, which means that Void Bolt is going to extend the duration of our Void form. And Void form is like our big damage cooldown. You deal increased damage when you're in Void form. You get full benefit of your mastery when you're in Void form. So you want to extend your Void forms as long as possible, which is why crit is pretty decent on a trinket. On-demand crit is pretty good for Shadow Priest for that reason. So your very first spell is going to be Void Bolt, and then in the time between globals, that's what these are called, you press Void Bolt, and then you can't cast anything for about 0.75 seconds if you've got maximum haste. In that downtime, there are 2 things that you can press, and you want to press those. So you press Void Bolt, and then keep an eye over here on the rotation thing. You do Void Bolt, Power Infusion, Potion, and Mind Blast, all within like a second of each other. So you want to press PI immediately after Void Bolt, your Combat Potion immediately after that, and then you should have 0 downtime between Void Bolt and Mind Blast as far as the global cooldown is concerned. Then you immediately want to cast a Mind Blast, and then a Devouring Plague, a Void Bolt, a Devouring Plague, a Mind Blast. So it's going to go, when you first get into Void form, it's going to go Void Bolt, Mind Blast, Devouring Plague, and then you can think of it as a new thing. So then you go Void Bolt, Devouring Plague, Mind Blast. So it's going to go Void Bolt, Mind Blast, Devouring Plague, and then Void Bolt, Devouring Plague, Mind Blast. That's because you're going to overcap on Insanity if you don't use that Devouring Plague first on your second Void Bolt. So then after you've cast your Void Bolt, Devouring Plague, Mind Blast, you go back to a Void Bolt, Devouring Plague, Mind Blast, Void Bolt. I'm going to Devouring Plague here again. Basically, you're on that rotation of those 3 spells, Void Bolt, Devouring Plague, Mind Blast, Void Bolt, Devouring Plague, Mind Blast, until you get other things that you can cast, which are more important. So right now my Mindbender is out, and my Shadow Word Death just came off cooldown, so I'm going to do Void Bolt, Devouring Plague, Shadow Word Death to get a Shadow Flame Rift from my Legendary, and then another Void Bolt, and then Devouring Plague, Mind Blast, Void Bolt, Devouring Plague, Mind Blast, Void Bolt, Devouring Plague, and then I Mind Flay because I don't have enough Insanity for a Devouring Plague. I don't have enough charges of Mind Blast. There's nothing to cast here, so I fill with Mind Flay. I will let this play at full speed after I am done talking about it, just so that you can see how it looks in real time. But the key thing to keep in mind is you want to, there's like 2 big rules when it comes to the Shadow Priest single target rotation. Rule number 1 is you want to cast Void Bolt every third global is what it's called. So you do Void Bolt, and then you do 2 other spells. Doesn't matter what. I mean, it does matter, but you want to go Void Bolt, something, something, Void Bolt, something, something, Void Bolt. And you always want to come back to Void Bolt on that third GCD, because you want to get as many Void Bolts as possible, and that's how it lines up with our current levels of haste. So it's going to be Void Bolt, X, X, Void Bolt, X, X, Void Bolt. And then the number 2 really big rule is that you don't want to overcap on Insanity. We can have at most 100 Insanity, and you want to be using your Devouring Plague to make sure that you never go over 100 Insanity. I will say that Devouring Plague, some people are worried about pressing it because it'll refresh the timer on it, and they're not sure if it adds more damage. But the answer is it does add more damage. If you press 2 Devouring Plagues back to back, it does 2 Devouring Plagues worth of damage in 1 Devouring Plague's worth of time. So it does stack. Don't worry about losing damage by pressing it back to back, because you can do that. So then I Mind Flay here just to fill, because I've got nothing better to press. And then I'll Void Bolt right out of it. I get a Dark Thoughts proc, and this is a good time to talk about how you handle these. Dark Thoughts you can use in 2 different ways. First off, Dark Thoughts can be used while you move. If you ever have to dodge an ability, or you need to be at a certain place at a certain time, you can use Dark Thoughts to do damage while you're moving. And then the second thing you can do is what I do here. If you're standing still, this is the better thing to do because it's more damage overall. I want to use this Dark Thoughts proc, but I can cast it while I'm channeling Mind Flay. So I'm going to get extra damage because I'm using Mind Flay, and I'm going to cast my Dark Thoughts while I'm doing this. So I'm going to go Mind Flay, Dark Thoughts in the middle, which is that Mind Blast right there, and then Void Bolt, Devouring Plague, Mind Blast, and then I'm out of Void Form. So that's the single target Void Form rotation with all your cooldowns. That if you can do this right, if you can get that like 40 seconds worth, 35 seconds it looks like, if you can get that 35 seconds down really, really well in your memory, if you can do this, if you can just replicate this over and over again, you'll do really good damage, because most of Shadow Priest's damage comes during our cooldown windows. So if you can get this really good, you're like 80% of the way there to getting everything else really good. And then when you're not in Void Form, your priority should be to make sure you have all 3 dots on the target, so Devouring Plague, Shadow Word Pain, and Vampiric Touch, as often as possible. What I mean by that is, for as long as possible, when this Devouring Plague gets down to about 1 second, I want to be casting another one to make sure it's still on him. You want to have as much uptime as possible is what I'm trying to say. So you want to save Devouring Plagues for when the other Devouring Plague is about to fall off. Whereas in Void Form, you don't have to wait for the other one to fall off before you cast it again. You just cast it whenever you can. When you're outside of void form, you want to wait so that you have all 3 dots on the target at all times if you can. That's because our mastery scales with however many dots we have on a target. We do more damage for the more dots we have on a target, so you want to have all 3 as often as you can so that you do the most damage possible. And then, let's see, is there anything else to say? There's one other thing to say as far as how to get really good at your single target rotation for Shadow Priest. A lot of Shadow Priest damage comes from our cooldowns, like I said before, and cooldown management is pretty difficult as a Night Phase Shadow Priest. So if you're having troubles, you don't know, should I be pressing Mindbender, or should I save it for Void Form, or should I be using Mindbender with Power Infusion, that kind of thing. If you're not sure when to press your cooldowns, I have a video all about that. It's called 9.1 How to Use Shadow Priest Cooldowns. So check it out. It's on my channel. There will be a link to it in the description below. That should give you a really good idea of how to line up your cooldowns on different fight lengths and things like that. But that's basically it. So I'm going to go back to the beginning and I'm going to play through this rotation in full speed so that you can, see how it works and what it looks like at full speed. I will say that the Shadow Priest rotation, as of right now, is pretty fast-paced, and it's only going to get more fast-paced going into the future. So if you're looking for something slower, Shadow Priest is probably not going to be good for you. So I'm going to shut up now and just let this play. I want to say thanks for watching. If you liked the video, make sure you click the like button. If you really liked it, make sure you hit the subscribe button. It means a lot to me and it really helps me out. Leave a comment if you have any questions or anything, and I can try and help you out. Also, I have a Discord server, so check the description for a link to that if you want to come chat with other Shadow Priests. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.